See the presentation now?
Where's the agenda?
Yes.
Oh, not right.
Okay. It is under board meeting materials.
Oh, gotcha. You did what I asked?
All right. Morning, everyone. My name's Greg, and I will be facilitating the meeting, seated by Wendy Morse. Call this meeting to order at 8:35 a.m. And I'm hoping that we can first go around and do some introductions. There are a lot of us here. I'll start myself. Greg, I work for the Rutland Regional Planning Commission. Go to the right, and then we go through everyone in person, and then go virtually after that.
Hi, I'm Ellen Coyle, and I am the Human Resource Director for the City of Rutland.
I'm Marissa Arduca. I'm the Education Coordinator at the unit.
Hi, Jen McNeil. I'm a work-based learning teacher and place coordinator at Rutland High School.
Good morning. I'm Kim Ransom, also from Rutland High School, work-based learning coordinator, and also place internship coordinator.
I'm Mike Bove with the Rutland Redevelopment Authority.
Devin Neary, Executive Director of the Regional Planning Commission. Hey, you're gonna
Okay.
use this list.
I'm gonna go down the list who's on this little tablet here. First, Amanda Locke.
Oh, Amanda Locke.
Amanda, I don't think we can hear you.
Do you know where she's from? Okay. If they can't speak to it, you can just sort of introduce them for them. Yeah, once you move on.
Can we move on to Michael? Michael, can you
Michael.
introduce yourself?
Michael Keogh, Director of Workforce Development for the Community College of Vermont.
And Michelle Daniels.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Michelle Daniels, and I'm a Human Resource Manager at GE Aerospace here in North Clarendon.
Amanda Richardson.
Amanda Richardson, Director of Health Careers Exploration at Southern Vermont Area Health Education Center.
Dr. Casella.
Morning, everybody. John Casella. I'm the president of Casella Construction in Pittsburgh, Vermont.
Jay Ramsey.
Morning, everyone. Jay Ramsey. I am the Director of Workforce Development at the Department of Labor.
Lyle Jepson.
From the Chamber of Economic Development. Good morning.
Tracy Lava.
Hi, everybody. I'm Tracy Gallup. I'm the Guidance Director at Pulteney High School. I'm also the Chairperson of the Rutland Area Guidance Counselors.
Nancy Shuttleworth. Nancy, I think you're muted.
Hi, I'm Nancy Shuttleworth. I'm a business advisor with the Vermont Small Business Development Center.
Rob Galpo.
Morning, Rob Gallipo, work State of Vermont. I'm the Buildings and General Service Southwest District Facilities Manager.
I think that's everyone. Thank you all. Happy to you're all here today, and thanks for taking a little time out of your morning to attend. The next item on the agenda. Yeah.
Greg, I can introduce myself.
Oh, wait. Oh, sorry, Wendy. I know you introduced yourself beforehand, but I know that was before the meeting officially started.
Right. No, that's all good. That's all good. So I'm Wendy Morris. I'm a regional manager with the Vermont Department of Labor and vice chair of the WIB. And I apologize for not being there in person. I'm multitasking an orthodontist appointment with my daughter this morning.
So the next item on the agenda is the approval of the October 1st agenda, which is on the screen now. Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
We have a second.
I'll second.
Who was that? Sorry.
Amanda Richardson.
Any opposed? All right, motion passes. the
Approval of the minutes.
approval of the June 11th minutes, the next thing on the agenda. We have a motion to approve those minutes from June.
Yeah, so moved.
Second,
Second.
any opposed? Motion passes. Okay. And now open to the public. Any public comments before we dive deeper into the presentation here? All right, hearing none, we're gonna move on to the August 2024 financial. So, Devin, do you want me to?
Nope, I've
walk
got
through this?
I've got a whole sheet. Lyle, if you don't mind, MK provided me a sheet, so I'll just present on that for you.
Thank you.
So under the June 2024 financials, the June profit and loss reflects a net income of roughly negative $850 for fiscal year end. On the revenue side, was made up of interest and Vermont Community Foundation grant revenue. The largest expenses during the fiscal year included consultant expenses of $9,929.79 for Greg's time, and administrative expenses, which included WIB's post office box, Secretary of State filings, business owners and directors and officers insurance. On the balance sheet, at June 30, 2024, there was $18,628.09 in the WIB's bank account. For Vermont Community Foundation grant revenue, the grant funds from VCF were fully expended as of June 30th. There is $1,819.77 remaining for youth-related events in FY25. Just as a side note, in September, Greg provided Carolyn Weir from VCF a report on how the funds were used, which was not required in FY24, as well as the successful Work 6 grant application. Carolyn was really excited to hear about the award, and she also coordinated a meeting between Melissa at Stafford, Lyle, Greg, myself, and her team to hear more about the great work at Stafford Technical Center and ideas for the future of the WIB, as well as the Work 6 grant. So we're hopeful that VCF will maybe provide some additional sustaining funds if available, but they are really excited that we're able to leverage their funding into much, much more through the Work 6 grant. Just a miscellaneous note to sort of put some of the recurring expenses into context and why the RPC originally absorbed the WIB. There are several, ongoing expenses that the RPC continues to subsidize for the WIB and will do so until the WIB has sustaining funding. The Regional Planning Commission currently covers accounting and grant administration support, and the QuickBooks subscription, and anything Greg is working on that has not been covered by VCF. So usually it accounts to several $1,000s a year in just QuickBooks and administrative support on top of Greg's work. So the RPC has been happy to have that extra funding to support the WIB in doing that work and continuing to provide grant and accounting administration. For August, the P&L reflected a net income of $828. The revenue is made up of, again, of interest in the $1,819 from VCF for FY25. Same on the expense side for August. It's just the portion of administrative expenses, such as the post office box and the insurance. And on the balance sheet, as of August 31st, there was a balance of $18,632 in the WIB's bank account. Currently, there's $11,700 or $11,072 in the WIB's checking, leaving, and of that, 1,800 is the VCF funds, leaving the WIB with roughly 9,250. Which, if you break down the routine expenses, the post office box, the directors and officers insurance, the business owner's insurance, Secretary of State filings, that's about $1,877 a year. So at our current level, we have just about 5 years of operating expenses baked into this WIB budget. So we have a little bit of breathing room, but I think it's going to be a really important task for the WIB to sort of develop some ideas about how we can replenish that amount so we're not out of money in 5 years. So that's the report. Any questions?
Maybe I can add a bit more context.
Sure.
So I think everyone is here, both for the committee meeting this morning and also largely, I think, for the fact that there is now a lot of grant funding for workforce development in the region, which is fantastic. And the WIB is a separate nonprofit organization from the Regional Planning Commission, and the WIB reached out in 2019 to get assistance from the Regional Planning Commission under an MOU. I was not there at this time. Please correct me if I'm wrong on that. But that funding through the Vermont Community Foundation to the WIB allowed me to have the time to write this grant, which now has been awarded. And then through this grant agreement, the WIB is providing programmatic oversight and direction to the programming within the grant, which is being managed by the RPC, because if the WIB as an organization doesn't have any staff members, if the WIB directly was to apply to this grant, then the grant would never have been awarded in the first place. So when we're talking about these financial statements here, this is not the financial statements of the Regional Planning Commission. This is the financial statements of a 501c3 nonprofit group that is partnered with the Regional Planning Commission under an MOU and is also a partner on this grant that is just recently been awarded. So hopefully that provides some more of like a broader context on the relationship between all these things. Anyone have any questions on that? I know there's like a lot of different moving parts there and like administrative components. I think that sums it up. Ed, you were here in 2019.
The WIB actually came out of the RRPC in the early 90s. So this has been a relationship for 30 years now, and it's kind of ebb and flow until you pick it up.
Well, without any further comment, I want to jump into the presentation here. So the dog, yeah. So giving some context to this grant award here, what we're looking at when we look at the economy of Rutland County, what we see is the third largest labor force in the state of Vermont, and we see a higher percent of production generated from tangible products than in Vermont as a whole by per capita. And then the largest employers in this region, GE Aerospace, Regional Medical Center, Killington Pico, Casella Waste, Green Mountain Power. And then when we look at the economic strengths of Rutland County, what you're looking at is healthcare, high-skilled technical trades, and then also employment in the outdoor recreation sector. These are some of the three like main drivers of the regional economy. But also, we see when we look at employment trends, we're seeing a gradual decrease in population in the last 20 years, but then a faster decrease within employment overall, and especially within jobs and goods producing sectors in the last 20 years. And then slightly less of a decrease in jobs and service sectors. And part of this is because of a larger number of retirees, but also this is a fact over a long-term time period of when, if there isn't enough people coming into a business, then sometimes that business chooses to relocate its facilities to a place where they can find staffing easier. So really, this grant is about getting more people trained up for the jobs that are high demand, high pay, and high growth in the region. And one other thing to add here is that when you look at the geography of the county here, you see a predominance of jobs within a few urban centers. So over 50% of jobs in Rutland County are in Rutland City. And then when you add Killington, Rutland Town, Castleton, and Clarendon, then you account for 75% of jobs in the region. And overall, you're looking at a lot of employment, a lot of economic drivers along Route 7 and Route 4. So going into the grant award itself here, what you're looking at is an award that began yesterday, September 30th, and will run through September 30th of 2027. So it's a 3-year award. And what the program itself we're hoping to build will look like will take predominantly graduating seniors who are not planning on attending college, and hopefully as well recent high school graduates who haven't entered the workforce yet, and then some smaller cohorts of refugees who are completing ESL classes and youth who are completing GED programs. And looking at those specific groups, bringing them into and admitting them into the program through outreach and enrollment in schools in the region, career development events, outreach events, as well as direct outreach through partners within the WIB, and then from there, having short-term technical training, including certifications through Stafford Technical Center over the summer, followed by placements with employer partners and on-the-job training that hopefully will lead to having qualified applicants being placed in jobs that are highly in demand in the region. And what this grant will be able to pay for is for that training through Stafford, the certification those students can gain, and also for wages with employers so they can train on the job. And what we're looking at is an estimated number of 120 participants over the 3-year period entirely, but we're also hoping that this funding will be able to provide benefits for people beyond those participants, because since there is funding to help do the outreach and enrollment events, that greater career exploration event funding should hopefully be able to help students in schools throughout the entire region, whether or not they end up being a participant under this grant. So when we look at the budget breakdown, and it says onboarding still in process because we asked for essentially the most funding they could give, which is $1.5 million. They said, that's great, here's $1.25 million. And they reduced in that other category. So we had asked for almost $900,000 under other, which is for that on-the-job training. And then the Department of Labor has reduced that to $660,000. So we're currently going through an amendment process to reduce the scope of work and the goals associated with the grant to match what the budget is. But essentially, we have these are the different categories and the different groups that are going to be involved within this program. And there are a lot of moving parts here. The RPC will be providing grant administration, participant enrollment and management, database management, which is potentially a very large component of the administration of this program, because the U.S. Department of Labor wants to track a lot of data to make sure that outcomes are successful and they can show that the money was used correctly. And then going down to that other category, that is really the funding going directly to employers to provide on-the-job training. And we currently have funding in addition to what is within that wages for employees. We're also hoping that funding will provide for those onboarding costs and administrative costs for employers to work with the program. Just bringing on a new employee as an intern or as a trainee, that has costs associated with it. So we're hoping that will be able to be provided for as well. And what this looks like right now is 5 weeks of training approximately at 40 hours a week, $18 an hour, plus employer admin costs and FICA. And then under that contractual part, that would be, these are all these subcontracts that can be made through the grant agreement. And that would cover Stafford doing adult education, technical education programming, which would include certifications, and also for those groups such as refugees who might not have total English language experience, then there also would include some ESL support for them, and as well as resources for youth who are completing GED programs. Also in here is funding for 30 driver's education courses tailored to non-English speakers. This is a resource that is not usually available through traditional grant funding sources, and we were asked that this would be a really good component of the grant if we're able to successfully get funding. So for the refugees who may be receiving resources through the grant, then they would be able to access completely paid for by the grant education courses to receive a driver's license. There's enough funding for 30 people to receive that education. And then there's also supplemental funding for each high school to support career exploration and outreach, as well as transportation for events. So there's a lot going on there. And again, this grant started yesterday. We're currently in the process of reducing that scope of work from 162 participants as a goal down to 120. And we're sending that off to the Department of Labor, and hopefully they're going to say, okay, sure, or no, we want you to do this or that. And then hopefully within the next month or two, we'll have a solid idea of what that scope is going to be associated with what the award that has been given is. Does anyone have any questions on this part of it here?
Greg, I do.
Yeah.
In regards to like the OJT and reimbursing the employers who actually do participate and have students who are training with them, will there be some sort of a timesheet, some sort of document that will be prepared on a weekly basis, a bi-weekly basis, that will be submitted to someone here at the RRPC for reimbursement, similar to what the Department of Labor did with some old OJT projects years ago? Have you gotten that far? Am I deep down in the weeds?
We have definitely not gone that far.
Okay.
But what we're hoping is that each step of the way, we want to make this as easy as possible for anyone else who's a partner to access these resources. Ideally, hopefully that would look like just having a full reimbursement after they have done training, or whatever arrangement would be easiest for an employer to access. And we definitely aren't that far yet. We need to figure out what the Department of Labor, Employment and Training Administration wants from us in terms of documentation, and maybe it looks more like something like that, but hopefully we want to reduce any of that administrative burden for partners as much as possible. So, but I could not tell you yes or no.
Is that the State Department of Labor or the US that's working on the scope?
So Vermont Department of Labor is a partner on the grant, but the grant itself is being awarded by the US Department.
And are they the ones that you're sending
They're the ones
contractual piece?
Yeah.
Okay.
So looking more broadly here, the program goals are to train and place program participants in high pay, high growth, and high demand jobs in the region. provide an opportunity to pilot and develop a new training model for key populations. And what that means is trying to see if this model of short-term education through Stafford with certifications involved, followed by on-the-job training, leading to an interview and hopefully potential job placement. Hopefully seeing if that's going to work as a workforce development model. And then also building partnerships between educators, employers, local government to create a coordinated workforce development system in the region. And in doing so, helping create a shared economic identity to guide future growth. So the next steps from here on are October through December. We're really looking at just trying to set up the grant, figure out what the U.S. Department of Labor requires the RPC to have as goals for this grant, depending on the amount of funding that's been awarded, and then creating some basic program policies and procedures, and before doing anything else, so that it can guide everything from there on out. And then we'll hopefully be setting up sub-agreements under the award. Ideally by December, we hope we can be at a point where we can reach out about that, but a lot of it is dependent on how quickly the U.S. Department of Labor is able to process paperwork and get to a point where we're confident in knowing how to move forward. From there on, we'd be creating an equitable admissions policy to have applicants come into the program, and we want to work closely with you to the extent that you have the capability to do so to make sure that that works for everyone involved. And then we'll also be working with Stafford to assist with curriculum development for a pilot year. Ideally, we have a program kickoff sometime next spring or summer, but and it's possible that we could enroll a small cohort of participants this coming spring, but a lot of it is totally dependent on how fast everything can get set up through this program. But looking at that top right of the slide, the goals that we are hoping to put forward are having 120 participants enrolled, 80 of them being high school seniors or recent high school graduates. And that's some feedback that we got since the grant award, that we really want to expand that scope to include people who are recently graduated from high school but haven't entered the workforce yet. That's a gray area under eligibility for the program. So we're going to put that forward to the U.S. Department of Labor. Hopefully they approve that. So we know that there are a lot of students who do graduate from high schools in the region and then are looking for resources like this, but maybe they weren't aware that they would have wanted to participate in something like this when they were still in that senior year of high school. So we're hoping to expand that eligibility a bit, but that's one thing that's a TBD. But along with those 80 high school seniors, recent graduates, also 10 youth who dropped out of school and 30 refugees who relocated to the region. And the goal here is to have an 85 plus participants placed in local careers following the grant. A lot of that is, on the participants themselves if they are capable of completing the program. And, we're going to be hopefully not extremely selective, but selective enough in the admissions that we find the right people who are ready to, be qualified applicants and for those jobs that we're, hopefully be able to place them in. And finally, having 50% of participants placed in areas that are related to infrastructure, trades, manufacturing, those kinds of careers. So it's a focus on that. It's not the entirety of the grant, but it's definitely a focus on that sector. Anyone have any questions? I know there's a lot of moving parts here, and there's still a lot of unknowns.
I just have clarification. So it's any high school senior, right? It doesn't have to be a student that's at staff.
Oh, no.
Senior, right? Okay.
I think the idea behind this grant in the beginning was that Stafford is able to provide a lot of technical training and education for students, but there are a lot of students who, for one reason or other, aren't capable of attending Stafford.
Right.
So this would expand that reach out to the other schools, and they'd be able to access those resources after they graduate from high school.
Right. Yeah, a lot realize that later on at seniors that, oh, I wish I did that. Right.
Yes. Jay?
Morning, everyone, and thanks for this presentation and congratulations on the award. I want to make a space for maybe Wendy at some point to help you think about co-enrollments with your program and with Department of Labor's programs. We might be able to pay for something to support your participants that you can't pay for. And the Department of Labor does like to see participants who are co-enrolled in things that they fund. So I just want to make a space for that. And then also to open it up a little bit of your thinking around registered apprenticeship. So registered apprenticeship is a work-based learning, on-the-job training sort of model. And it is a growing program. And I think we do have several registered programs in the Rutland area. So when you're thinking about your OJTs, don't forget about apprenticeship.
That sounds great. Yeah, I can reach out to Wendy later this week to set a meeting and talk more on roles. It sounds like that would make a ton of sense. And also, I think probably we are trying to look at this as kind of, for a lot of jobs, this is like a pre-apprenticeship model. Because it is a short-term program to get people interested and also, be able to get employers able to
Try before they buy.
Yeah, try before they buy. For lack of a better term, try before they buy. Yeah. So that sounds good. Yeah, Wendy?
Yeah, so thank you, Jay, for bringing that up too. And so Greg and I did meet for, I don't know, it was a while last week, I think it was, Greg. And we had talked about, in particular, trying to do co-enrollment for certainly all of the high school dropouts as well as the refugee population. And then infusing that as part of a sort of a process of onboarding when looking at all applicants coming into the program. So definitely the co-enrollment is something that we already have our eyes set on.
Okay, thanks.
Yep.
I thought you might have.
Great question. In regards to this program, so 5 weeks, it is someone who has gone through some form of a vetting process, who even qualify to be in the program. Unfortunately, what you find is pretty much the first week, any new person is like hyped up, ready to go, all is good. Generally, second, third week, if there are concerns or issues that may start bubbling up to the surface, that is the time. Employers obviously can and should manage anyone who's in the workforce. Is there a component to this where there will be some sort of a support for that student who may be, for lack of a better word, I'm going to use struggling, whether they're limited in their professional skills or they're so connected to their cell phone that they don't know the cell phone has to be put away in the 8 hours that they're working for the employer, or they just really need some coaching and redirecting on some of their behaviors. I know probably 90% of it falls on the employer who's taking them on as the placement. However, will there be support either from the school or whomever is supporting and sending that person through this training program?
So it's a really good question. And it's not one I have thought of in great depth. And I think it speaks to all the nuances of both creating a good admissions policy from the beginning and also setting up the interworkings of this program to support that. I think it's definitely possible. I also think that part of the professional and technical skills training that would be delivered by staff early on in that process would hopefully address things like that. So in addition to addressing the like technical skills required of a job, it would also be trying to teach those soft professional skills of like, oh, maybe you shouldn't have like your phone out, you know, right, in the middle of a work day. I'm not sure I have a great answer immediately, but I think that it is definitely something that, you know, with proper planning, we could integrate that.
Yeah, and if I can just add to that, so I love the fact that this question came up, and thank you so much for asking it. I think this is a good example of why co-enrollment with Department of Labor Services could be so instrumental in helping those individuals to stay engaged in this programming. So one of the things that Department of Labor always offers, regardless of eligibility, is case management services. We call it case management services, but to the participant or whoever we're working with, really it's a lot of coaching and guiding and mentoring, and having that person be able to go to somebody to help navigate all of those obstacles that might be getting in the way of success. So I think this is a great example of why co-enrollment under this model is going to be so important.
Thanks, Wendy.
Yep.
Yeah, without hearing, I don't know as much about that process, but it sounds like it will be substantially very, very helpful. Yeah.
Is there an age limit?
There is not an age limit.
Okay.
The limitations for people who would be eligible as participants are that they would be qualified as new entrants to the workforce, which means that they either have not entered the workforce yet or they have been out of the workforce for a significant period of time for one reason or another.
I'm just thinking high school, they can go till 22, some of them.
Yeah.
So I didn't know if it was beyond that or just of that block.
There is a low range though, because
Okay.
we're not going to be enrolling anyone who is under 18, because we're trying to keep things as simple as possible regarding labor restrictions, and we don't. While we'll be doing outreach to the high schools, and within the high schools, we want to make sure that everyone is eligible to work in terms of age by the time they enter the actual training and on the job training, especially.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
Is that a self-imposed rule, or is that in the grant docs as far as the age?
As far as age, the program allows for people who are graduating from high school to be entered into the program. In terms of the grant doc, they don't specify whether that means they have to be 18 or not. So it's kind of, I would say that's a partially self-imposed, but they definitely are not saying that people under 18 can be eligible. I think it's definitely not supposed, this grant is not supposed to be serving people who are in their sophomore or junior year of high school.
Right. Yeah. But they some maybe
graduate at
17. That was why I asked that question. Some graduate at 17.
And that was the reason I asked as well. I've got an intern right now that's 17 and graduating. That would be an example of somebody that should fit but age qualify.
Yeah, I mean, maybe that's. I mean, I'm not sure where.
We can sidebar. It's probably a one-off, or not a significant challenge for a lot of situations.
Yeah, it's something that I can raise to Department of Labor to make sure of that, and see what the exact language is. Michael, do you happen to know, as someone who was in the work 5 round of this?
Sure, I think the federal guidelines offer some youth programs where you can serve people as young as 16. So, but you definitely want to check with your FPO on that and what modifications, if any, you may need to make.
Okay, yeah, I think it would definitely have to be a modification, but I can check and see.
Usually there's provisions if they're in a technical training program. So like Stafford students that are enrolled in Stafford programs have exceptions to a lot of them.
Yeah, I would just see if that's an exception that would be made through this.
In our Work 5 grant, just for what it's worth, we have served youth under 18, even though programmatically we stated that we were serving people 18 and over. At the Community College Vermont, our Work 5 grant funds a very similar program that offers a pairing of pre-employment exploration with that post-employment upskilling, which includes registered apprenticeship and less formal kind of earn and learn models. So I think there's an opportunity also, you know, to kind of to Jay's point, federal grantees or federal grantors like to see grantees partnering and pairing resources. So I think there might be a lot of opportunity here. If your modification doesn't allow you to serve other populations like incumbent workers, people in transition, ours does. And so there's a lot of good overlap here.
That sounds great. Yeah. Michael, I might try to meet with you sometime when you have time to talk more about that. Lyle?
Yeah, I worry that we, playing devil's advocate here, I worry that sometimes when we see a pot of money like this, that we think we can serve everyone with it. I'm not sure we can. I wonder if we want to have a target population. And I look at some of the people who are here, who are from the high schools, and if in fact we believe the figures that 45 to 50% of the kids are leaving high school without necessarily having a plan, I wonder if we should target those students specifically so that we know we've got a captive audience when they're seniors in high school. And we should be able to, I would think, be able to target them with this program. Some of the follow-on things that we've been talking about would be great, because then once they graduate through this, they can then take advantage of those other pieces. But I worry if we throw a net so wide that we're not going to catch what we're really after. So I just throw that out there for discussion or not.
I mean, that's certainly the original intent of this grant when it was written, is to, as a majority, serve high school seniors who are not having a plan, not potentially attending college, and then also as a large minority within the program, serve youth who have dropped out of school and refugees who have relocated to the region. Looking at that slide there, it's 80, 10, 30, which and that's pending this onboarding process. But that seems, I think, like a good breakdown. I'm not sure.
I would think that if we target anyone younger than 17, we're going to be missing the mark, because those students can't go out and do the work experiences that we're trying to have them engage in. So we're going to need to follow the rules, as Michael was describing a minute ago. And I think if we get too low, we're missing the target. And if we go too high, I think we're missing the target too. I think we need to focus on graduating seniors. I'll stop now.
Michelle?
Yeah, I was just going to add some of our experience with a grant that we had over this summer for internships, and it was we were targeting high school students, but we did have students who were under 18 who were hired as well for the summer internship. What we found was that it was just more difficult from an employee experience and on-the-job learning to have those individuals work in their desired, skills that they wanted experience in, while still adhering to the prohibited work guidelines under the Department of Labor. So, Lyle, you do have a point. And since we're targeting technical training, with the partnership with employers and the on-the-job training, we may find more difficulty with placement of students under 18 getting the experience that they're really looking to get.
Yeah, my worry would be it would get too complicated. There might be too many variables. But there are already a lot of variables.
Can I say something?
Yeah, of course.
I just think that with our work-based learning experiences and who we actually put out there in our classes, and then folks that want to go to GE that haven't participated in something, they're missing that block. So we can identify students. I probably can name 5 students right now that would be able to participate in this program. You know, there are many students that are thinking, no, I'm not going to go to college and have that debt already.
Yeah.
Right. So, I mean, I think we can both name that. We do have the mandatory class that we teach, which is clear exploration. And then we have the work-based learning that we do. So I think along the line with Lalo's point, I think we can already identify some of those folks that are already coming up through the ranks that when they are a senior, they'll love this opportunity to be able to have that in front of them, you know, and they want to go to GE already, you know.
And we are hoping to do career, like support that career exploration and outreach work during their years that they're moving up into this. Obviously right now, you know, the first cohort has not started this program yet.
Right.
But for that third cohort, maybe they are aware of it a year, 2 years beforehand.
Right. And they may not have gotten into Stafford.
Yeah.
You know, there could be another
There's
reason.
limitations
There's
on how many kids go to Stafford. And also I think what we're seeing at a high school, I mean, it's not a tremendous number, but I think we're definitely seeing, especially in the trades field, more students looking to graduate early their senior year. And so that's why I think the age thing comes up, because more are 17 as opposed to 18 because they're choosing to graduate in January.
Yeah.
Like I think I've already had 5 this year that are like, oh, we're done in January. And so that's at least seems like more than normal. So I don't know if that's going to become more common, but just something to think about.
Yeah.
I think, too.
Well, anyone other questions?
So Greg, is there a subcommittee of this group that takes these suggestions and noodles them and then comes back?
I think there can be, and there probably should be. There is not right now. I would be happy to reach out about that in probably a month, because I'm suspecting it'll take the Department of Labor some time to just like move through and like get to a point where we're ready to start building out those kinds of internal policies and admissions criteria. Michael, do you know how long it took for you to go through that scope reduction to align with what they awarded CCV?
It only took me a few weeks. We did a lot of prep, kind of in advance, but I'm happy to help with that. As you know, the reporting requirements can be a little laborious. I'm happy to help with, evaluating the data collection and reporting requirements, alignment with other programs, et cetera. So if there's a subcommittee, I'd be happy to serve on it.
That sounds great. Thank you.
Yeah, while we're waiting for that, I wonder if we could have, I'm just throwing this out for discussion, if we could have Tracy, because she is the lead for the high school guidance counselors. If we could have 3 employers, CCV, DOL, and SD and Stafford, be a subgroup, because then you would have, not trying to leave people out, but we would at least have a subgroup to begin talking about this.
Lyle, I'd like to include Rutland High School, someone from Rutland High School as well, just because their needs are different than some of the outliers in the smaller schools. So
you would know.
Just one comment, the schools that are on the edge of the county, we definitely know kids that would be great for this program, but sometimes transportation is an issue for us.
So we're hoping to, within this budget, there is funding for transportation within the program. So I hope that can be supported.
Yeah, and I think one of the things is most of these kids do find a way to get to their sending school to take a bus directly to like Stafford. So I think that if we had a central location for like pickup for transportation, if we had more than one person in a community, they probably could get that far.
May I be so presumptuous as to make a motion that we create a subcommittee that would include Tracy, someone from RHS, a Department of Labor person, a CCV person, and 3 employers.
Can you say that list one more time, Lyle?
Tracy, because I'm looking at her on the screen and she's smiling there. Oh, her hand's up. Okay. Tracy, a representative from Rutland High School at Tracy's request. Thank you. 3 employers, CCV, Department of Labor, and Stafford Tech.
We have a second.
Second.
Any opposed? All right, motion passes.
May I make a second motion?
Of course.
That we articulate the purpose for that group, which in my mind is to create the target audience and process for utilizing the funding.
I'll second.
Any opposed? All right, motion passes. So our next fall meeting will be in December. I don't have the date off my head, but I can send that out when I send out minutes for this meeting.
Before we take off, could we set a meeting time for that subgroup? I would recommend that we have General Electric, Casella Construction, and one other. I don't see, there might be someone else here already. Doesn't have to be John.
Rutland would be lovely participating since we have 155 employees. We are one of the top 10 employers in Rutland County, which most people don't know. And 23% of our workforce will be retiring in the next 5 years. So we'd love to be on the committee.
There's number 3.
So Lyle,
Good.
I would suggest that those meetings are virtual as much as
Yes.
possible.
Please.
Yeah, I think that would be great.
Are we in favor of setting a time right now, or would it be better if I coordinate that with that group? I know everyone may have busy and conflicting schedules.
Yeah, it may be easiest to do that with the group, and I don't know, maybe even do a doodle poll for if this was like a standing monthly meeting, or I don't know how frequently we need to meet. Probably more frequently in the beginning.
I appreciate the doodle poll. I think that would be helpful.
Great.
Okay, I can send that out today or tomorrow.
Thank you.
And I'll also send out to everyone the date for the December meeting of the full board. Okay. The motion to adjourn. I cannot make a motion. Can someone else make a motion to adjourn?
I'll
I
make
think
a
I'm
motion
ex
to adjourn.
officio. I don't think I can.
I think you're on.
Aren't I ex officio?
You're full board.
When I,
I said,
yeah, sure.
I'll make the motion to adjourn.
Have a second?
Yes.
Oh.
Second. Any opposed?
Technically don't need to vote.
Oh. All right, meeting is adjourned at 9:29 a.m. Thank you for your time, everyone. Good to see you all. People who are here in person, there are bagels over there. If you
Oh,
want
yeah.
bagels.
Thanks, Craig.
Thank you.
No,
Thanks.
you.
Congratulations, everyone.
Welcome.
Bye.
Thank you.
Congratulations, my daughter. She's a freshman. She's in Career exploration.
And
Yeah, almost all of our retirements are in the public works.
You have heard?
Yes.
Oh,
I
really?
was surprised.
Yeah, that's good.
It's
Yeah,
training,
this is
it's
all-
training.
First semester, freshman year, I was
Yeah.
like, really? Because my